Join me as I dive into the rise and fall of Nigeria's 6 automobile assembly plants, the reasons for their failure, and the key lessons for Nigeria's quest for industrial development, so we don't make the same mistakes twice. Nigeria's journey into automobile assembly began with high hopes and great expectations. In the 1970s and 1980s, the Nigerian government initiated ambitious projects aimed at developing the domestic automobile industry by establishing assembly plants for some of the world's most recognized car brands like Mercedes-Benz, Peugeot, Volkswagen, etc. These projects were part of Nigeria's industrialization strategy to reduce dependency on imports, create jobs, and stimulate economic growth. However, the dream of a thriving auto industry quickly turned into a story of failure. By the 1990s and early 2000s, these plants had largely become defunct or severely underperforming. This video delves into the key factors and policy failures responsible for this negative outcome and draws lessons for the future. If you're new to this channel and would like to receive more insights of this nature, do not forget to subscribe. Now, let's look at each of the 6 automobile assembly plants. Number 1. National Truck Manufacturers, NTM, was established in 1976 in Kano as a joint venture, JV, between the Nigerian government and Daimler-Benz AG of Germany. NTM aimed to assemble Mercedes-Benz trucks, buses, and vans. Initially, the plant produced over 2,000 vehicles annually. However, NTM's success was short-lived. The company experienced declining production and eventual closure in the late 1990s. Number 2. Steyr Nigeria was established in 1980 in Bauchi as a JV between the Nigerian government and Steyr Daimler Puch of Austria. The plant aimed to assemble trucks, buses, and agricultural tractors. Initially, Steyr produced over 1,000 vehicles annually. However, the plant's fortunes declined in the 1990s, and by the early 2000s, Steyr Nigeria had ceased operations. Number 3. Leyland Nigeria was established in 1974 in Ibadan, primarily to assemble buses and trucks. The company, a joint venture between the Nigerian government and the British Leyland, was seen as a critical part of Nigeria's industrialization plan. Leyland enjoyed some success initially, supplying vehicles to government agencies, the police and the military. However, Leyland's fortunes declined rapidly in the 1980s. The company was negatively affected by the economic challenges encountered by Nigeria. By the 1990s, Leyland was a shadow of his former self, with minimal production and a loss of market relevance. Number 4. Anambra Motor Manufacturing Company, ANAMMCO, was established in 1980 in Enugu as a joint venture between the Nigerian government and Mercedes-Benz AG. The plant was designed to assemble buses and trucks. Initially, ANAMMCO experienced modest success, producing over 6,000 vehicles in its first decade. However, the plant's production declined in the 1990s. By the early 2000s, the company had virtually ceased operations. The plant's facilities fell into a state of disrepair, and its equipment became outdated. In 2019, the Nigerian government announced plans to revitalize the company, partnering with a new investor to inject fresh capital and expertise. Number 5. Volkswagen Nigeria, VON, located in Lagos, was established in 1975 as a partnership between the Nigerian government and Volkswagen AG. The plant was designed to produce popular models like the Beetle car and the Combi bus. At its peak in the late 1970s and early 1980s, the plant produced over 30,000 vehicles annually. The decline of Volkswagen Nigeria started in the mid-1980s and was compounded by Nigeria's economic challenges, policy inconsistencies, and the Structural Adjustment Program, SAP, of the IMF that was implemented by the Nigerian government in 1986. By the late 1990s, the plant had ceased operations as it was unable to compete with cheaper imported vehicles, especially from Asia. Number 6. Peugeot Automobile Nigeria, PAN, was established in 1972 in Kaduna as a joint venture between the Nigerian government and the French automaker Peugeot. By the late 1970s, PAN had become a household name, producing the popular 504 and 505 car models. At its peak, the plant had the capacity to assemble over 90,000 vehicles annually. However, the success of PAN was also short-lived. By the late 1980s and 1990s, production volumes declined rapidly. By the early 2000s, PAN was barely operational, producing only a small fraction of its capacity. So then, what are the key factors responsible for the unfortunate failure of these companies? First, inconsistent and unfavorable industrial policies. This is one of the most significant factors contributing to the failure of Nigeria's auto assembly plants. The Nigerian government provided the automobile assembly plants with incentives, such as import duty waivers on completely knocked down or CKD components. However, these policies were not sustained. The introduction of the Structural Adjustment Program, SAP, in 1986 caused the liberalization of trade, the unwise removal of protective tariffs, and the devaluation of the Nigerian naira. These changes made it cheaper to import fully assembled vehicles than to produce them locally, undermining the viability of the assembly plants. Second, macroeconomic instability and exchange rate volatility. The Nigerian economy has been characterized by industrial policy instability. Frequent changes in exchange rates significantly increased the cost of importing the CKD and other essential components. As a result, the assembly plants operated much below their installed capacity, suffered significant losses, and shut down eventually. Third, poor infrastructure, particularly in power supply, transportation, and logistics, severely hampered the operations of the assembly plants. Unreliable electricity supply forced the plants to rely heavily on expensive power generators. Fourth, the lack of local content development. While the assembly plants were still operational, they relied heavily on imported CKD components, with little emphasis on sourcing or making some of the components locally. The joint venture JV partners were simply contented with selling their own components, which were made in Europe. This dependency on imported components made the plants vulnerable to fluctuations in foreign exchange rates and global market conditions. And finally, the global automotive industry became intensely competitive with advancements in technology and production methods, leading to lower costs and higher quality vehicles. Meanwhile, Nigeria's assembly plants were burdened by inefficiencies, outdated technologies, and high costs. Therefore, they couldn't compete effectively with the higher quality and lower cost imported vehicles. So, what are the lessons for the future of Nigeria's industrialization? First, it is crucial to implement consistent and supportive industrial policies that provide a stable business environment. Protective tariffs and other incentives are essential for the success of domestic manufacturers. The government also needs to ensure reasonable access to foreign exchange for the importation of essential components. Second, developing a robust supply chain in Nigeria is critical for sustaining the auto industry. Encouraging the production of automotive components locally can reduce dependency on imports, create jobs, and stimulate technological advancement. Third, investment in infrastructure. Reliable electricity, efficient transportation networks, and streamlined logistics are necessary to reduce production costs and enhance the competitiveness of locally assembled vehicles. And fourth, Nigeria's auto industry must embrace innovation and adopt modern technologies to remain competitive in the global market. This includes investing in research and development, R&D, and encouraging partnerships with foreign automakers and technology firms. While some of these auto companies have been privatized, the industrial policy and macroeconomic issues still remain challenging and require serious attention. Learning from the past mistakes and implementing the right strategies, Nigeria has the potential to revive its auto industry and achieve sustainable industrial growth in the near term. Thanks for watching. If you find this video interesting, don't forget to like and share. And if you're new to this channel, subscribe to receive more insights on Africa's economic development.